Hello, I'm Roy Rollocks, founder and lead business coach at VisionWorks. And today I would like to introduce you to morning affirmations at VisionWorks. We are proud and excited to bring to you a technique utilized by many top performers in just about every field of endeavor. So what is an affirmation? An affirmation is an oral or written statement confirming something to be true even when you don't feel like it. VisionWorks affirmations are simple, positive statements declaring specific goals or outcomes for your day. These empowering declarations can have profound effect on the conscious and subconscious mind. So why affirmations? Positive affirmations can help you create positive emotions, which can improve your mental, emotional, and physical health. The awareness that affirmations produce makes you more likely to challenge negative or defeating thoughts as they arise. Research on affirmations indicates that they can boost your problem solving and decision-making skills, help you to perform better under pressure, help you to focus on abundance rather than lack, and develop an attitude of gratitude. So how do you make the best of VisionWorks morning affirmation? First, find a place free of distraction. Secondly, remain calm. Smile if it feels natural to you. Say your affirmation slowly and clearly. That's number 3. Fourthly, repeat the affirmations at least 3 times, really focusing on the meaning of each word. We are convinced that these affirmations, when added to your daily routine, will empower you for greater impact. So look out for more of our promos and subscribe, and you will receive our podcast once a week that you can repeat daily to set your day on the right path. See you on the inside. Welcome. Good afternoon to one and all, to all of you who are listening in, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. And I have to also say Happy Republic Day, especially for those of you that consider today a very important day in our nation's history. All the best. My name, Roy Rollocks. For those of you that don't know, I'm the founder and impact consultant at VisionWorks. Welcome to Bulletproof Your Budget. 101 practical budgeting tips on doing more with less. A little bit about VisionWorks. We are a team of business consultants, trainers, and coaches. We are committed to helping individuals and businesses thrive in a very volatile, uncertain, complex, and often ambiguous world. Some persons refer to it as a VUCA world. We guide our clients to unearth their creative genius and direct their efforts towards innovation. That's what we do. In this way, we've seen great ideas being fueled that bring about sustainability and create transformational impact. And all of this leads to harmonious business and personal success. Today and every Financial Friday, we focus on our financial well-being and prosperity. As I've said before, as a certified financial planner for over 20 years, I've seen what financial distress can cause and what it can do to the best of us. Indeed, I have my own stories, and I know many of you listening in, you have your own stories that you can share. So our rationale for these series of sessions, these webinars, relate to a survey that we conducted a couple months ago. In the survey, we asked, how are you making out? And you replied, of the many things you shared, 3 issues came out on top. You had fears about whether or not you're going to earn enough money during this time. There was a fear about rising debt and loans, and the idea of how to better manage your budget. And that's why we're here today. We responded by bringing together individuals in this series that focus their time and energy on helping you grow financially. we are offering budgeting tips to empower individuals when income is low, slow, or maybe non existent. A wise man once said that a budget tells your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. When facing financially challenging times, this holds true even more. With bills and expenses increasing and income scarce, now is the time to batten down and to make the income that you have stretch to make ends meet. Is this just a pipe dream? No, not at all. Our panel is here to help make this a reality. Today, our panel is quite extensive. Our in house panel consists of experts in various aspects of financial planning. Our external panel consists of you. You graciously shared your own tips on how you successfully manage money given your particular situation. So, together, we will explore and share tips and tricks that help us all to bulletproof a budget, meet our most important needs, and chart a way to still achieve our most treasured goals, pandemic or no pandemic. So this evening we have three main presentations of about 5 minutes each. After each presentation, we're going to have a Q&A where you can ask of our presenters using the hashtag ask presenters name and the question in the comment section. Or maybe you have a tip that you'd like to share, something that you've used that helped you in particular. Just post hashtag my tip underscore and the tip you'd like to share. Each presenter today is passionate about seeing individuals achieve personal success, and the ideas were developed with you and your needs in mind. So, without further ado, let's meet our first presenter, Madonna Davis. Madonna Davis is a financial legacy therapist and has been working in the financial services sector for quite some time as an agent, as a financial salesperson, and has helped numerous persons to achieve the goals that they want to do financially. In particular, her focus is in helping persons achieve the legacy objectives that they want and ensure generational wealth is transferred. So now we'd like to turn over to Madonna, who presents on what is a budget and what's the benefit of having a budget. Over to you, Madonna.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Raul said, my name is Madonna Davis, and I'd like to thank Mr. Raul, Rolox and Vision Works. I must say this is a great team, and why I say great is because Martin Luther King, in one of his books, redefined greatness for me when he said, everyone wants to be great, but greatness is not by what you accomplish, but by the lives we impact. And that makes the difference. And that is what Vision Works is all about. So that is why I'm saying that, yes, I'm thankful to be a part of this great team. My topic for this evening is on budgeting. And if you can put in the comment section, in your own words, what is budgeting, you will receive a free Mario's voucher, which I budgeted for. So let's see how quickly you could do that. And we can go off with the winner by the first person who can put in the chat. I'll get the name of that person and they would win themselves a Mario's voucher, which I budgeted for. So, what is a budget? And a budget is basically a financial plan for a defined period, normally a month, a year. It depends on what your goals are. And as we go along in simple ways, we will say budgeting is a spending plan based on income and expenses. In other words, it's an estimate of how much money you will make and spend over a certain period of time. So while you're doing that, you're monitoring and you're tracking your money. Budgeting can involve sometimes a comprehensive list of your expenditure, or it may just be focused on just a few categories. In the financial industry, I've realized that many persons are unschooled on budgeting, but I must tell you, it's quintessential to have a budget. It causes you to have economical prosperity when you budget. Now, your budget, in other words, sometimes may cause you to manage accurately. And we know that the persons that are here will understand budgeting. Sometimes if you don't, you tend to spend more than your income. So, since budgeting allows us to create a spending plan for your money and our money, it ensures that we will always have enough money for the things we need. And these things are important to us. Following a budget or spending plan, we also sometimes, with a budget, can help us come out of debt or not be in any debt at all. Budgeting is simply balancing the expenses and income, and we understand more with how we spend. And it's not just the people here, but it's the young people in the mall. They spend more, right? So we're going to be talking to them when we connect with them about budgeting so that they don't spend more than they receive. And it's okay if you would have some point in time ended up in debt. Steve Harvey says it all the time. When he changed, his circumstances changed. So the change begin with us. We need to set realistic goals for our money, and that will help us make smart spending choices. Ask yourself, what do I want my finances to look like in a year from now? Decide on how important it is for you to start. And these are some of the benefits we would realize as we go through with budgeting. It causes us to set these realistic goals that help us make smart spending choices, identify our income, our expenses, and you might be amazed when you find out, when you decide to track how you spend, how much money you spend. I'm sure you would be accustomed to the term, I feel like I have a hole in my pockets, because you put in the money and you don't know where it gone. It's like it disappear because you didn't put things in place, you didn't plan properly, so therefore you spent, and before you know it, before the month end, money has diminished. So you may ask yourself, can I live without budgeting? And I will say no. If you want to be financially secure, you need to be budgeting your finances. Make sure that you're not spending more than you make. Balance your budget to accommodate everything you need to pay for. Match your spending with what you receive, your income. Decide ahead of time what you will use each paycheck for. Ask yourself, have I allocated money for my necessities, food, transportation, utilities? And this will protect you from going into debt because you understand that you don't want to be debt, you want to be debt free. So, in closing, I want to let you know and help you understand, please track your money with your budget. Budgeting is one of the most important financial habits you can adopt between helping you achieve your financial goals, keeping you from getting financially overwhelmed, or even helping you avoid or get out of debt. There are so many reasons to live on a budget and so many lessons we learn while we do it as well. The real question is, why won't you? We don't want you to be living paycheck to paycheck because it can only cost you in the long run a lot. And allow God to be your guiding light as you continue to plan financially with your budget and achieve your goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madonna. Excellent start. You've laid a great foundation for us in helping us to understand that there are benefits to a budget if you want to achieve the success that you have in life. Before we get into the questions or any comments, I see we have Selena Gordon. She put a definition of budgeting as a spending plan for a period. So certainly we want to recognize her, Madonna. And what we want to do now is to bring on the rest of our panelists. So we're going to delve a little deeper into this particular topic. And as well, we're going to make room for persons who have their own tips. Any tips that have to do with how you go about budgeting and how it has helped you that you'd want to add to the conversation, please feel free to put it up, as well as any questions that you would have. So our panelists today, Michelle Ellis,
Right.
a practical living coach, and Anthony De Freitas, a financial analyst and consultant. Thank you very much. And you're going to be hearing a little bit more from them a little later. So Madonna introduced the topic of why budgeting and the whole idea of having a budget. So my first question is, given all that we hear all the time about budgeting, You know, this everywhere you hear budgeting, yet people seem not to do it. Why does this happen? What's the reason for this? Given all the information that we live in a Google age where we can just Google and find these things, but yet people are not doing it. As experts in the field, what would you say are some of the reasons why people don't put a proper budget in place?
Yeah,
And that's an open
one
one.
of the things, yeah, sure, no problem, Anthony. Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. One of the main things we see, I mean, I'm involved in the credit union movement. I do private consultancy and so on. And one of the things we see a lot is a sort of hopelessness. And that's the best word I can find for it, because what happens is that a lot of people, don't matter what their salary is, they might be working for 10,000 a month, 5,000, 3,000, 20,000, whatever it is. A lot of people, because of the lifestyle that they live, they tend to not have the vision to see the future and to see what the required changes in lifestyle going to afford them. So a lot of times they just see what is in front of them. They have to go online, they have to go and do this, they have to go and do that, buy the latest sneakers and shoes and whatever. And they find themselves in a predicament where they may have one or two loans and so on, and they don't see that possibility of earning real value, in terms of accumulating assets and so on. They think that, hey, I too small, I too insignificant. And that's one of the major problems. And one of the things people have to understand is you could start almost anywhere. We have seen these stories, we have heard these stories, read these stories about so many people in places like New York, in the US and the whole, who were able to live the dream of living in the United States in one way, by being successful, basically.
Oh, I realized that I was on mute.
It was muted,
Yes,
yeah.
sorry about that. Yes. So what I was saying, I put this question to you, Michelle. As a
Yes.
practical living coach, um, you've helped with quite a number of persons with putting their budget in place. Why don't people budget? There's so much information. Anthony spoke earlier to a sense of hopelessness and not being able to see the future clearly. What has been your experience in this area?
Thank you for having me, and good evening, everyone. I would have to say that the whole issue of hopelessness, I would probably spin it just a bit and say, I think that people use hope as a crutch, right? They think that hope is a strategy for making it. So you kind of wing it, God will provide. And so they don't expose themselves to knowledge. That's one. And also because they think that budgeting is really for the rich and the successful, right? They do it, they're rich, they're successful. So there's some kind of magic to the whole process.
So in other words, Michelle, if I don't have money, what can I budget? I don't have an income.
You don't have anything, you understand?
Okay.
And also the idea of hope as a strategy, and I would also see faith as a crutch. So you depend on God, He will provide, it will work out, it will all come together. Also, I think the idea of mindset and behavior, that 80-20 mix there. Experts have said that it's really 80%, thinking, mindset, and 20% behavior. Um, if that is the case, or if it's the reverse, you could definitely see the challenge there, because when your blueprint is skewed with respect to money, spending, saving, investing, then you're going to find yourself in a spiral in terms of behavior that will reflect that mindset, right? And so you'll keep doing the same thing over and over, and not necessarily being able to come out of that pattern of existing.
Okay. So what we're saying, what I'm gathering so far is that persons are locked in a mental model, a paradigm that doesn't
Yes.
allow them to break free, from these attitudes and these behaviors. Is there anything that you'd like to share, Madonna, on how can persons break free from these challenges that they may face in terms of putting a budget in place?
In putting a budget in place, it really helps you with regards to managing and not spending in excess. So when I spoke on earlier, sometimes when you don't budget, the saying that you feel like a hole in your pocket because you just pull out and you spend and not thinking, and it's all in your head. And just like the Bible says, write the vision down. When you budget, you're writing down what you need, and actually you would be amazed. I want to encourage persons to even track what you spend. So if you have to spend, and when you spend, you write it down, you'd be amazed sometimes how much money you spend in the month without even thinking or looking twice. But once that is in front of your face, it makes you do a self check.
So what you're saying is that persons really need to develop the discipline of making note, tracking what you're doing, and as they see it, that reality may help jerk some persons into wanting to make a change.
Definitely,
If I,
definitely.
Michelle, yes?
if I may just share, many years ago, and this is many years ago, I did an experiment on myself. So I started recording every time I spent money. Now, I had no intention to save. This was just to see, how much I was spending, because I remember listening to a seminar and they said, the average person spends about $1 million in a certain amount of time and so on. So I started tracking and just writing down. It was a $2.50 here, $5 in transport, $7 for this, eating out, and so on. And at the end of the month, I was so amazed, flabbergasted was probably a better word, at how much I had actually been spending. So I thought to myself, if all of this money is actually available to me to spend, what better way for me to, to harness and manage it and to put it into some kind of order. And that's when I started this quest of understanding, budgeting and the different ones and what would work best for me given my circumstances. You see, and as Madonna rightly pointed out about budget, a budget really is a living document. It changes with your life circumstances. And so you really
Yes.
have to be adjusting up and down, and trying across this an eclectic approach through budgets to see what will work best for you depending on your life circumstances. You see?
Great. Thank you very much. So in some ways, we can say a budget sort of reveals, or lack of budgeting reveals our attitudes. So when we look at how we track, it paints a picture of our level of discipline and our behavior and how we see money, and a blueprint you mentioned earlier. But before, I want to take a comment from Anthony on this whole idea of how to break it. But I think we have a question from the audience. What if we have a question from Chris Gatsby. Thank you very much, Chris. What if your income varies tremendously from month to month? In some months it's $1,000, another month it's $3,000, and next month it's $500. Does budgeting work in this situation? I'll put this to the entire panel.
Definitely.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Anyone care to elaborate? Yes.
It works better for you in the sense of you don't budget with the maximum, but you find a common ground. So if it's 1,000 one month, 3,000 next month, you would budget within the lower brackets. So therefore, you would always have. And you can save as well now when you get the lump sum, as it will, if you want to call it that. So there would be a balance. And if you try it for about 2-3 months and you continue and you're consistent, it would help. It may take some adjusting because nothing happens overnight, but consistency is the key.
Yes. Thank you very much. We have, I have to add, a lot of viewers know, we've had so many tips coming in before, and certainly you're going to get an opportunity. We're going to have a special offer at the end of the session where you can get some more of the tips. But one person's mentioned the whole idea of cutting your dress to suit. In other words, this is what you're working with. If you're working with $1,000, it means you can adjust. Is that realistic, Anthony?
Yes, very much so. The thing is, especially where you have varying amounts of money coming in every month, you have to be very careful to be frugal and not be. What happens that when you have cases like that, where you have plenty money coming in one month, a little less in next month, as in the case of having your own business, people tend to just spend, spend, spend. The main thing to assist with this, though, is one, as we were agreeing earlier, and Madonna had said, discipline is the key in terms of doing this, managing yourself. So one of the things I would always recommend to people is to always have that little release valve in terms of a secondary area where you could keep your money. In the old days, some of the old ladies used to keep a little bottle hidden somewhere in the house, and they would stash a little 20, 100, and by the time, a year pass, you have $2,000 sitting down there. Some people do a susu, right? But the idea with going into susu and those things, or your neutral second scheme account, or your deposit account in a credit union, is to save that excess money, right? So that way it gives you leverage. It gives you leverage to do something else. And you see, the problem we have in the world today, as you said, Roll, not just in Trinidad, but all over the world, is really consumerism. So people, the excess money that people have, they're really giving it to Jeff Bezos and them. Just now he might break out piece of United States and take off. You know what I mean? Because he has
And
so much money.
Pennywise.
Yeah, he
I
don't
know
know
the
what to
ladies
do
would
with
like
it.
to hear that.
Yeah, you don't know what to do with it. So at the end of the day, you use it for yourself. Nothing wrong with giving Jeff something, right? Give
Yes.
Jeff Bezos and them. They're selling good products, but don't
We
overdo
abs-
it.
we actually had someone on one of our sessions indicate the amount of money that they gave to Pennywise, and it was in the order of a couple $100,000. She did it over some years. It's really
Correct.
amazing.
Correct.
So guys, we I mean, this is intriguing. One of the things I see coming out from the discussion is this whole question of needs and wants, and maybe that's part of the issue too. Persons not being able to differentiate what's a need and what's a want. Everything they're saying they need, and we don't realize there's quite a lot that we can do without, especially when our income is low. I'll leave a closing remark from Michelle before we get into the next session. What's your thoughts on this? The whole question of balancing needs and wants, Michelle.
Well, obviously that is tied into your budget, right? And I just wanted to share, I don't know if I'm holding this up, for the camera. You see this little envelope here, Anthony, when you mentioned Granny would put it under the mattress or in a cup or whatever it is. Of course, it brings me to what I would share, about this envelope system and other little hacks and tricks and different things that we can do to help us, right? To the person that wrote in with the question, if your income is it varies from month to month, I would suggest that you consider the four walls, right? Dave Ramsey refers to it as, your food, your clothing, your shelter, your transportation. That's important. And you need to allocate for that because that keeps you going. And then you have to look at what is it that you owe. And you need to take care of that because there's no point you being in prison. You wouldn't be able to, obviously you'll stay longer, right? But so you take care of what is necessary, and then you move on in terms of other areas. And at some point you have to draw the line on spending. And there are a number of things, of course, that you can. Roel mentioned, things that needs and wants, right? There are different types of budgets that will help with that, obviously. And I'm not sure would you like me to jump right into that or?
Well, we can make a segue. So what I'll do, thank you very much, panel. We will break for now, and we will now introduce Michelle Ellis, who is a practical living coach, and she has helped so many persons. I mean, literally sit with them, look at their situation, sit in the living room, sit at the kitchen table, look into the kitchen cupboard, look into their wallet, and help them make the adjustment. So certainly I would want to endorse Miss Ellis. If you're one of those persons that would probably need that sort of assistance, Miss Ellis can help. And today she's here to share a little bit about the different types of budget. Maybe there are different approaches to budgeting, and they may not all work for everyone. So we're going to introduce Ms. Ellis now, and she's going to get into the various types of budgets. So over to you, Michelle.
So thank you so much, Roel, and to the panel. and everyone who is tuned in, who's listening, who's viewing. Um, there are a number of budgets. I have kind of zeroed in on just 7 of them, and then I will try to expand as we go through. But I want to make sure that we have a general understanding of those 7 and see what is right for your lifestyle, what fits best, right? But before I do that, I just want to lift from the good book, right? Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5 says, careful planning puts you ahead in the long run. Hurry and scurry puts you further behind. So this requires careful planning. And this is followed by Proverbs 10:4, which says that sloth makes you poor, but diligence brings wealth. And the whole idea of budgeting, right, is so that you can create wealth and so that you can be ahead in the long run. This is not for the short term, it's not for tomorrow, right? But in the long run, there are benefits to be had, and that is financial benefits. So we have the concept of the no budget, right? And we have people say, okay, well, I don't budget at all, I just live. That works well if you financially you have more income than you do expenditure, so that at the end you probably just do that once a year. You automate your savings, right? And essentially you pay yourself first, but you have enough to cover all of your expenses. And you at any point within the year, your 365 day can start anytime, and you revisit, you check, you make sure all your automated payments are going out, and then the rest of it you spend. So it's a no budget essentially, right? That would work for people who have, of course, discipline, who are diligent, and who are accountable, usually to themselves. All right. The other type of budget would be the spend first budget, where you pay all of your bills, and after you've taken care of all of the expenses, and of course, Madonna mentioned in her presentation, you have your income and you have your expenditure. The expenditure, of course, has to be looked at in terms of what is fixed and what is variable. And the variable would be things that you can adjust, you can tweak, because those are based on maybe some wants, inclusive of some needs, right? So entertainment would be a want in some cases, but paying your loan, that should be fixed, right? Yes. So when you have that spend first budget, usually you take care of all those expenses, right? And then what is left is what you save and invest, right? That works well if you have a lot of debt, but it doesn't work well if in the long run you're trying to save for big ticket items, such as maybe buying a house, or paying off loans that you have that are hanging over your head, student loans, car loans, etc., right? So that might not be the ideal one in this situation for everyone. And then, of course, there is the opposite of that, which is the save first, or the savings first budget, where you save a lot, right, a great chunk of your income, and then the rest of it you pay all of those expenses, which may be fixed or variable expenses. The problem with that one is that if you try to save a whole lot because you want to be able to accomplish some financial goal, right, you may end up not having enough to live on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes what happens to people, they don't recognize that they actually have what they need. They've already set up the emergency fund. They've already put 3 to 6 months in savings, right? But then what happens, they don't have enough to be able to meet their day-to-day expenses. So they end up going to take a loan, to cover this and cover that. When they, if you reverse or you tweak the amount that is saved, right, you will actually be able to take care of that. The next one is the 50-30 20, and the 50 says it's those non-negotiables. The 30 is lifestyle choices, and the 20 is your savings, right? Your savings goals. So those you have essentially non-negotiables would be those fixed expenses, right? The 30 percent would be your lifestyle choices, which I think fall nicely into the category of wants, right? Variable expenses. I mean, you could just cut the cable, right? And then there's the 20%, which is the savings goal. Now, if the idea is to be able to advance and to reach some kind of financial independence, right? I would suggest that you change the ratio, right? So that you save more, and maybe, flip depending on what income is coming in. This 50 30 20 does not prioritize debt payment, right, or debt repayment. No, it's just about managing the money that you have, and saying, okay, look, I've saved something, right? It doesn't require really much monitoring, because every month you're doing the same 20% of whatever you get. I don't think that it has, of course, we have three factors that we have to consider when you're looking at a budget. One would be time, the saving rate, and the growth rate. You have control over time, you have control over the saving rate, but you don't have control over the growth rate. That depends on your economic, the financial institutions and what is happening in the economy. So if time and savings rate is something that you have control over, then the 50 30 20 system, that type of budgeting, right, you will have to tweak it in order for you to achieve your financial goal faster, right? Then there is the zero-based budget. That one says that you have a number of categories, right, for your expenses. And when you take your income less the expenses, it should be zero. Everything should tally zero, right? So you earn 2005, you should spend and save. All of the categories should give you zero. It works well in most situations, but you have to be shifting priorities and really be serious about what it is that you intend, so that when additional income comes in, you also have to add that to your income and rework the budget so that it always gives you zero at the end. All right. The other one is the spending ceiling. The spending ceiling says that I'm going to add maybe 10%, give or take, to what I would normally spend. I'm going to give that a 10% increase and no more. I'm not going to go beyond that. And once that happens, this is you put a cap on how much is going to be spent every month, to be maybe a 10%, 5%, right? Depending on what your needs are and what it is that you're trying to accomplish in this case. And then there's the anti-budget, right? So, and the no budget. They kind of sound the same, right? But the anti-budget says, look, I'm not budgeting. And the no budget is, I'm not budgeting. But one has a sense of money being a non-factor, and the other one, money is a factor, and you're already able to manage it and save it. So essentially, I think those are the different budgeting types. And if you have the correct amount of discipline, right, people have to research and find what is right for them. You can map that through methods, and that would be either you use a checkbook, so you record what it is that you're spending. You can use a notebook, a traditional method, you just write everything down, or you can use the envelope system. I use the envelope system, right? And I put categories on that. So through the envelope system, the notebook or the checkbook system, you then choose the budget that is right for you. And you can actually tweak or you can combine budgets. So, for example, the saving first budget and the 50, 30, 20 can be combined, right? And you find that middle ground in there. Really, it is whatever you are comfortable with, just as long as you are saving, just as long as you're managing your expenses and you're making responsible choices. I would think that would be able to help. So yes, that's my contribution on that. And of course, I'll be more than happy to take questions and explain each in detail if it comes to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michelle. Great contribution there. You really expanded the idea you shared earlier about the reality of seeking information. The fact that there's so many different types of budgets. I think anyone listening in can find that particular budget that can help. But maybe we can bring on a panel, as we delve a little deeper, right? What I'd want to throw out to our panel in this particular area, we talk about income and we talk about how we budget and so forth. How would you describe as individuals, what's your budgeting style? What's your, I know we've heard from Michelle in terms of the envelope system and what works for you. Anthony and Madonna, how would you describe your style? I want to make this real so that viewers know that this is something that people are actually using and working.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So what I would do, I like the I mean, and it depends on the stage of life you're at as well. That would determine, what type you use, as Michelle was saying. But in my case, what I do, I normally use somewhat of a zero-based budget, but I make sure that within that zero, I make provision for what I intend to invest. That is a significant, let me tell you something. Even if you're working, even if your income is 2,000 or 3,000 a month, right? My dad always used to say, save at least 10% of what you earn. If you earn $1, save 10 cents. Even if on some months you can't make the 10 cents and you make 5 cents, still put aside something. So that is why I like that style, in order to make sure. But you see, one of the things I want to put forward is that the budget really is useless if you don't have a vision. And that is something that a lot of people lack in their life. And both Madonna and Michelle spoke to it. You need to have, on a personal level, you need to have something to aspire to. If you're not aspiring to anything, and you're just going month to month, you'll just spend out everything. But when you have a vision, and people normally have that, like if you're going to get married and so on, what you would do is say, okay, we're planning to have a house within the next 3 years or 5 years. So you have that vision. People keep a picture of the house as the screensaver on the computer and on the phone. And these things are very, very important. Let me tell you something. We are the only animals that have that sense of me, right? And that me goes back to the Almighty. That sense of me is really not a selfish thing, we all connected, right? But we have the power. We are the one animal that have that power. We could put a picture in front of us and have that vision, and God does the rest, But He ain't gonna do it if you're going and spend your money on alcohol and entertainment and stupidness. You understand? Or if you go and get a drug problem or a gambling problem, that's a totally different story. But barring those things, it is very, very possible to do what you have to do by having that vision.
I want to push you a little bit, Anthony, because I really want to make this real for viewers. I want you to look at your life, and look at the different areas of life. You buy groceries, you pay bills, you maintain a home, you maintain a vehicle. Could you give 3 tips, 3 things that help you to save money and cut costs in any of those areas? What are some 3 tips that you would give in any of those areas? Some viewers indicated that in terms of maintaining a car, right, they make sure that they do a regular checkup because that cuts the cost of maintenance. They keep their tires pressured. That way they use less gas. What are 3 main tips that works for you?
Yeah, one of the main tips I would suggest is how you purchase food. Very, very important. A lot of people have a bad habit, and I have friends who live from New York and Florida and all these places, right? And one of the biggest mistakes they make is looking to go outside 10 o'clock in the night to buy something back convenience store. And people do it in Trinidad here too. They run out to get two, three things three times a week. That incurs an additional 30% at least on the cost you would pay if you go somewhere else, right? That's one thing. The other thing is, well, together with that, I would say you have to make sure you plan for grocery shopping. Don't just go and just picking up thing and throwing in the cart, and the child picking up thing and throwing in the cart, and you're just going to the cashier and like as a raffle and waiting to hear $2,000 or 15, and you ain't really sure. You have to really plan. If you don't plan for that, let me tell you, you will really hurt yourself that way. That's the easiest way to blow your budget, by just picking up thing and going and getting a surprise at the cashier. Plan for what you have to buy. Plan your groceries. Do a list. That is so critical. I can't begin to tell you. I tell you, I know people who have bought 2 and 3 homes by budgeting for what they spend on food alone. Very
Wow.
little else. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. The other thing is you have to know when to change your car. Right. I have been in the accounting and financial business for 32 years. Right. And I could tell you, one of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that a car is an asset. Right. I argued with somebody on that topic 40 years ago. And then it took me about 10 years to realize I was wrong. Telling them a car is an asset, but once it have a value and it allows you to go to your job and to do it. Now, a car is a liability, because the time you buy a car, right, and depending on the car, it will lose 20% of the value by the time you drive out. By the time you bounce the starter, right? Actually, some of them cars that we buying as new is not even new. Because them
Yeah.
fellas, if you watch them driving it from the port, you ever watch them fellas driving the new cars with the D plates on the port? They have police with them and blue lights flashing, and they go at 100 miles per hour. So it's not a new car you're getting. And then some insist. I have some friends insist they have to go to the credit union every 3 years to buy the latest car from Lifestyle or Massey or whoever, and tell them about Massey's ecosystem, and they will get the points. And all that is good, but you have to be able to afford it. Not everybody could afford to buy a new car every 3 years or 5 years.
Yes.
You understand?
So
Very
thank you very
critical.
much for those tips.
Welcome.
Michelle,
Yes.
what are your top 3 tips that help you manage money, cut costs?
One would be, definitely, I agree with Anthony about making your list to go to the supermarket. So
Yes.
I would go a little further. You plan your menu for the week, for the month, right? Now, on my refrigerator, I actually have my menu for the entire month planned out, and I know the ingredients that I need for each menu. And then I have a slot for leftovers, and that's what we're eating, or sandwiches or whatever, right? For that part. And then I have always allowed my children one time per month when they're going to eat out, fast food or whatever it is. And I usually cringe because they try to make up, so you put a cap, right? And that is definitely where I would have a spending ceiling. So this is the amount that you can spend and no more. So if you decide you want one burger and it's 35 for the burger, you have $50. So decide if the rest will be fries or drinks or whatever it is, right? I also try not to, in terms of planning trips, so that I can execute en route whatever I have to do. It will be in one, because I usually have a lot of traveling to do to Southeast and so on. So everything I have to do will be en route on that day, so I don't have to go and come
You
and
save
that kind of
time
thing.
and money,
So I
yes.
save time and I save money, right? Another thing would be, I confess I didn't have cable for many years, right? Only got it because it came with a free package with my provider. So I took it because it was available, right? But it would just be regular TV. So I avoid that temptation to see all that is new and all that is latest and that kind of thing. I don't go browsing online. I don't have the time for it. So I look for nothing. So I can't be tempted by anything. right?
You won't get caught with consumerism at that
Not
Anthony
at all.
mentioned. Okay.
Right. And the other thing is, I have stores that I go to, um, because you need to, as women, you like to be in places, see nice things, put it together. I do that in my head. I go to the store and I literally put my hand behind my back, or I hold my handbag and I walk through the store and I say, I'm getting one item. This is how much I'm going to spend. And when I don't spend it, I celebrate because I've come out of the store without having bought anything. But usually, my first trip, of course, I make 3 trips to the same store. My first trip is just to look. The second trip is to conquer. And the third trip, I would plan, okay, these are the things I would buy. And I
Yes.
plan
Yes.
for them.
Yes.
And using the envelope system, I would try to scale back on some of the categories so that I will have enough to be able to afford those things, right?
Excellent.
So those,
Tips work for you.
you really have, as I said earlier, your budget is a living document, and you really have to be playing with it, moving things around, and determining what is a priority for you, at any given point in time. So when I'm doing, even in my decorating, some people, okay, buy the new couch. No, why not just change the cushions and the curtains? You understand? Or why not just change the rug if you need a new look? Sometimes I find myself moving the paintings from one room to another in the house so that I have this new look when I sit down. Or if it's cheaper to just paint the wall in a different color, then I would
What
literally paint the wall.
while you're on that, and before we turn over to Madonna,
Mhm.
what is your take on do it yourself? One of the persons contributed that tip. They said that get as much information about the do it yourself, and you could repurpose furniture, you could repurpose old stuff in your house, you could do all kinds of stuff if you do it. What is your take on do it yourself?
All right. So the Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, right? And with respect to that, do it yourself, you need to know what you're doing, right? Otherwise, you could make a whole mess of things. What I have done, personally, I look at the things, the areas that I like, and I go to find training in these areas. So during last year, during the lockdown and so on, I did a course in landscaping, right? I did a course in interior decorating, right? I did courses in different things, areas of my specialty, and then I undertook doing them, right? And shared with friends, and we had collabs and so on, so that we can encourage each other. What I'm saying is, you can't just pick up and just do it yourself. You have to know what you're doing and train for that so that you can maximize, right? And of course, get the expected results. So there is some amount of investing in yourself in order for you to save later on by having developed the skills to be able to do what it is that you need to do.
Excellent. So, lastly, Madonna. So, what do you say, Madonna? Buy water or drink tap water? What is it?
I say get a Brita.
So, what are your 3 tips,
I
Madonna?
have
What
my
works for you?
Brita.
Okay.
My 3 tips is they are shop around. That's number 1. As a mother, and when it comes to the house and shopping and the groceries, I agree with everything Anthony and Michelle said with regards to making a list. But I also shop around, so I can tell you when the cereal goes up in Massey store, I know where to go and get it at another location because the price is cheaper there. And therefore, if it stays up at the 3 groceries that I shop at, then I don't need that this month. But even in the economic times, and being real with our listeners, I didn't always like the word budget. I was like, why? But then if you don't like it, it will come upon you and you're forced to do it. And
Yes.
therefore, realizing you had to be very consistent to maintain and the goals accomplished when you do that, obviously, is something I embrace more so. So I definitely shop around when it comes to my groceries and in the market as well. The prices, it fluctuates. So for sure. And up to date today, I was having a conversation with someone about it that in Trinidad now, the groceries really have gone up, and to some people, it didn't matter at some point in time, but now I think it's at the forefront of our head. So we need to be cognizant of that fact if we want to maintain that kind of financial stability as well as I love the planning to do the cooking at home and all of that because it helps as well with regards to how much you spend out. I would do that not once a month, but probably 3 times, that kind of thing. Um, and it's because I have planned how that goes, and therefore it all comes into the whole plan of budgeting for me on my side of the fence. Then I love what Michelle was talking about with moving the pictures. I moved around, so now my business is out there. I moved around curtains for 4 years. I came from a background where you had curtains for Christmas, curtains for Easter, curtains for Carnival, curtains for
Republic.
Independence, curtains for because I grew up and I was like, no. And so therefore if the living room curtains a particular way, then they probably might hit in my bedroom another time, and we shift, and that had helped save a lot of money as well. So that whole shifting around things, it's okay, nothing is wrong with it. You don't have to keep up with the
Yes.
Joneses,
Yes.
okay? And those were things that we grew up under. But
Yes.
another good one good thing they were excellent with. I'm sure you all would have had a list to go into the corner store for. They always had a list of what we needed to get in the grocery. So
Yeah.
listing it out was something that I
That
took with
works.
them. And saving every time you get money. My daughter, I mean, I shared it for my birthday. Wow, I wondered where she was stacking the money. And that reminded me of my mother. I really thought she had money outside or some kind of thing because the money never finished, right?
Mhm.
But they were just always saving, and how they managed it was exceptional. And they made sure the necessities were taken care of. That was the food, the light bill, and those kinds of things. So we need to prioritize and know what our needs are and make that a priority.
I
And
want to ask you a question, do
Mhm.
Madonna. And I'll put this as the final question to the panel before we go into our last session with Anthony. There's been a lot of talk about buying in bulk, even if sometimes you team up with other persons and you buy in
I
bulk,
agree with
as
that.
well as cooking in bulk. So you cook for the week in bulk, so that you then freeze the meals and so forth. What are your thoughts on this whole bulk buying and bulk cooking?
I agree with the buying in bulk because it's something that I had done. Um, I agree in a lot of things for bulk, but we can't talk all about that here. But the buying in bulk, the taking out the cable in bulk, back in the day, right? And all of that, that was something a lot of people did, and it worked well and it cut costs, right?
Yes.
So the buying in bulk, because I don't need 5 packs of macaroni for $20. When you look at it, sometimes it's so much there, how much macaroni you can eat. But when you buy it together, then you share and then you get more out of it. So I agree with buying in bulk and teaming up and buying.
What about you, Michelle? What are your thoughts on bulk buying and bulk cooking?
Right. So I think that the bulk buying depends on the items, right? Madonna mentioned how much pasta could you eat. Sometimes you have products that could actually spoil or expire by the time you actually get to them. So you would not have saved really, you would have wasted
Yeah.
your money,
Mhm.
right? So you have to decide. I look at some things that are bulk that are, and then things that I could just pick up in one
Mhm.
at the supermarket. And Madonna mentioned checking around. There's a little corner shop that I found where the Milo is actually $4 cheaper. So I
Mhm.
drive there and I
I
go for
telling
it.
you,
You
yes.
understand? So it makes
Mhm.
sense to pick that up. So I go to get bulk stuff, then I go to the supermarket, and then my last stop is at that little corner store, pick up what I need, and then I go home. That's
Mhm.
one. With respect to, I just want to jump in to talk about that investment that Anthony talked about. When you prioritize, your saving and investment, right? It's very important to consider what we invest in, right? And so land, right? My father had this saying, a woman is like a good piece of land. She never depreciates in value. The emphasis for tonight, though, is on land doesn't
Yes.
depreciate in value, right?
Yes.
So that when you have real assets, it is you have to know what the asset is, and so invest in it. And if you have money, you need to put money back. A lot of people have money and then they spend the money. But if you take the money that you have, because I think for me, investing has two parts. It's either something physical, so that you could buy land, for example, or you take it and you improve your home so that the value of your home goes up, you know. And of course, you have to consider things like market value and other things that I don't know all the terminology for, but I know what works for me, you know. So that
Yes, yes,
you need to reinvest in the things. So you improve your land, you put your, you know, buying fence posters to secure your land, I think is a good
yes.
investment. You
You know,
understand?
yeah, I will endorse that. I met a couple of years ago a young man in his 40s, and he was actually a millionaire right here in Trinidad. And he did something that he was real extreme. As a teenager, he didn't buy cars and brands or anything. He actually wore slippers. He showed me for a very long time. He invested everything he had in property. He started buying up even as a teenager. It's really amazing when you hear his story. And he put up property and started renting it, even though, he couldn't afford to have one himself. And it's amazing to see him today. I met him at the bank, and actually he's still wearing his slippers today. But he took this principle of investing his money not into vehicles or not into anything like that, but into land and property. So I take that. I thank you very much for that, Michelle. You have the last word on this, Anthony.
What you
Yeah.
said there, all Grant Cordon, he also endorses that. He even says before you own your own, purchase and rent it out
And
and
rent it
build up
out.
your capital. Yeah.
Powerful. Thank you very much for that, Madonna. I want to ask one last question before we turn over to hear more about the process of what are the steps involved in this whole budgeting thing, right? But Anthony, Michelle mentioned it, and a couple persons mentioned here on the panel that you can save $2 here, $3 here, and some persons save just $1. Could you speak to this whole issue of understanding percentages? If you save
Yes.
$1 out of five, if is that an
Yes.
important thing to understand? Yeah.
Very, very, that is more than important. Yes, boy, that is a critical piece of understanding. And I'll tell you something. My dad worked with Chinese people for years, and Chinese people, as one of the, they don't like to pay money. They're very frugal, right? Um,
Kind words.
and one of the things,
Yes.
yeah, and one of the things he always said, and if you look at how the Chinese in Trinidad, like the people who come from Hong Kong, and we talk about the original people that came from Canton and so on, but we have some that came from Hong Kong and so on. They really deny themselves, and they live just a basic, most of them live a basic lifestyle because they have the goal, whether it is to go Canada eventually or whatever it is. So they live very frugally. But one of the main things we have here is people need to plan. They need to plan for everything in their life. If you don't plan, you wouldn't maintain a budget. That's a key point to take away here. You must have a plan. Everything you're doing, you
Yes,
must
yes.
plan. And it must start with that personal discipline, and you must have your goals. So in other words, when you have your long-term goals and you have your short, so long-term goals will be anything over 1 to 2 years, right? Short-term will be anything from a month to 2 years, right? And you must have those short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals and put the things in place. That's what Michelle was talking about, the 50, 30, 20, and so on, right? Where you must know, depending on the stage of life you're at, how much to set aside in order
Yes,
to achieve
yes.
those goals.
Well,
Very
I don't want to steal any more of your thunder, Anthony. So thank you very much, panelists. We're
understood.
going to come together for one final discussion after. But we really want to introduce Anthony at this time, a consultant and financial analyst. And he's been working particularly in the credit union movement, and has helped numerous persons change their situation, especially when it comes to dealing with loans, dealing with debt, dealing with understanding how they should treat with their financial needs. So now we want to introduce Anthony to speak on the issue of what are some of these steps. We spoke about what a budget is and the different types of budget, but what are some of these steps and key points we want to make a note of as we go on this budgeting process? Over to you, Anthony.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Roel. And I'm glad to be here with the whole crew. So in terms of the budgeting process, right, I just want to make a point before we start. Now, as we said earlier, all the panelists have agreed, and we keep saying that the main thing we need to have as a first step in creating a budget is really having that vision, right? You must have a vision. You must have a vision for your life. Where do you want to be within a year's time, generally? Where do you want to be within 5 years' time? You must have this vision, and from that vision, just like a company, individuals are very much like companies. We are just single organisms, right? Whereas a company is a fluid arrangement of individuals for a common purpose, right? Usually to make a profit. But nevertheless, as individuals, we have to understand we must have that vision, and from the vision, we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to achieve this vision? What I want myself to look like, what I want to be, how do I want to be over the next year or 5 years? And what do I need to do to get there, right? So the point about it is the budget is what helps us to move from point A to point B. And that movement shouldn't just be linear, and it shouldn't just be crossways, it should be upward. The trajectory must always be upward. If we start off with $1, we must plan within 1 year to have net growth in assets or ability to pay of X amount, right? And coming back to the last point Raul was making in terms of percentages, one of the things we have to remember, I just wanted to finish up that point by saying that one of the things that Chinese people always say, one of their sayings is, cent and penny profits make millions. And that is no joke, because my father worked with a company that did wholesale dry goods way back in the 70s and 80s and so on. And one of the things his boss always said was that, and she was a Chinese gentleman, he said, cent and penny profits make millions, right? So when you see somebody in the road, it has some people picking up cent and 5 cents long time, and people used to laugh, right? One of those individuals, I understand, had accumulated over a period of about 20 years. He accumulated over $200,000, and he was posing as a vagrant in Port of Spain, but always very clean. He was always very clean because he wasn't going on any standpipe to bathe. He was bathing in his home. He had a nice little 2-story house, right, somewhere in East Port of Spain, and bathing and everything, and coming down with his hand stretched out on Frederick Street every day, right? And when he go to the bank, never smelly, always, well, I wouldn't say well-dressed, but clean. And when he pull up, good morning, Mr. So-so-so, how are you today? And they treat him with respect, because those 5 cents and 10 cents and little $1 and $2 he was collecting end up amassing him, I wouldn't say a fortune, but it gave him a living, right? So the point Roll was alluding to, and that I fully support, is that, the small amounts do add up. One of the other points I want to make too is that when we're talking about the person who asked the question about making, wavering income, the income goes up and down. 1 month is 1,000, next month is 3,000, next month is 20,000. When you have a situation like that, we have something that I want to make a distinction here tonight called real accounting, right? And it's a term I learned. I work in the accounting field for years until I understood that concept, real accounting. What real accounting speaks to is reconciling your bank account balances to your net worth. In other words, a lot of people do a budget on paper, right? But that budget becomes useless because it's not backed by anything. So one of the key steps in budgeting has to be comparing your bank balances. And that is what I mean by real accounting. Paper accounting, like looking at a set of financials for a company, right? And you're seeing they're worth $10 million. They have 30 million in total assets, and they have 10 million in liabilities. And they say, okay, they have capital or net worth of 20 million. But when you go in the bank account, you're seeing $2 million. And something wrong with that? Something is wrong with that. unless they have significant investments, right? They must show where that $20 million in equity is. And that's the point I want to make, that in budgeting, apart from having a vision and developing a budget itself, it is critical that you always have access to funds in a bank account somewhere, right? Or the UTC, right? And going back to what Michelle said about the envelope system, I firmly believe in that. Me personally, I find it's a bit cumbersome for me. My personality doesn't allow me to do that. So what I would do is just move some money. And listen, you have online banking. Save some money every month. You move a 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 from your bank account to your UTC money market or second scheme account, or to your credit union, and you put that money there and make it less accessible, so that if you end up in a jam, you could pull some of that money, right? So let's look at the actual processes after we say we need a budget. What are the steps toward creating a budget? So we must budget, as our first presenter had said, we must budget for both income and expenditure, not expenditure only, right? And of course, the first step before setting a budget, we must, as I said just now, set aside the small sums of money and forget about them. Whether it is in an envelope or in a UTC account or not first scheme, second scheme, or whether it's a a credit union deposit account, put it somewhere that is not readily available, but you could access it if you need it, right? And forget about it. This would provide a buffer when the money runs out or for an emergency. The second thing you have to look at is prepare to invest what little you can towards earning what I always like to refer to as multiple sources of income. In other words, you work in TST, you work in Royal Bank Republic, wherever it is you're working, good, nice. But that gives a fixed paycheck. Nobody ain't giving us that overtime these days. So you have to find ways to get multiple sources of income. And you would ask, what does have to do with budgeting? Well, I would say it don't make sense budgeting when you don't have anything to budget. So the first thing you need to have is you need to assess your income and to find out how you could multiply that income. And the best way I would suggest is having that multiple sources of income. I wouldn't call UTC second scheme a multiple source of income because it's 1.4% they pay in per annum. There's no such money. All right. But certainly joining a good credit union, you might be able to get 2.5%. Some of them pay 4%, depending on the performance. I have seen credit unions in the past 3 years clock a significant 5 and 6% in dividends. So if you put 100,000 there, you're getting $5,000 every year in dividend. What is that dividend? That is income, right? If you invest in the stock market, right? There's a guy I know, he invested in Republic Bank shares. Now, Republic Bank shares, you don't get that often. You don't get that. That don't be any market selling carte blanche, right? You might get 100 at a time, 50 at a time. But 20 years ago, he bought Republic Bank shares when it was very much smaller than it is now, and before they would have split it and so on. And he make a few $100,000 in just off of buying those shares, right? So that is the other thing I want to say. Make sure and try to have multiple sources of income. Even if you have a small salary and you, let's say again, $3,000 a month, and you just save, you're able to save through budgeting $100 a month. You could do so much with that. That is $6,000 a year, right? And with that $6,000, you could invest in some stocks on the stock exchange. You could buy a few 10 of about this share, 5 of that share, and you build up a little portfolio. But you must have patience. It will take time for those shares to appreciate in value. You need proper advice from experts to guide you as to which shares to buy, how much of, when to buy, and so on. And you will be surprised that within a short period of time, you would be able to make a decent return on those things. And of course, there's entrepreneurship. I would tell anybody, don't matter if you're working for a company or whatever you're doing for a fixed salary, you could also invest in a small business venture. It could be a small cleaning company. It could be monetizing a dream. You might be somebody who likes to paint or who likes to write, who like to crack jokes, right? There are people right here in our economy who doing wonders, right? By doing YouTube videos, posting up regular videos, getting followers, and monetizing their dreams through YouTube, right? They pay good sums of money for the right amount of views and for having the followers and for the social media interaction, right? So there are a lot of avenues, right? And at another session I went to last week, I was sharing. There was a guy I know who was he was a electronic engineer at a telecom provider in Trinidad, and sometime 2 years ago they let him go. They sent him home. And he was in a quandary saying, well, how I will survive, boy, I have a mortgage with this, that. When he put pen and paper, he start thinking what I know how to do. And you know his wife say? His wife say, boy, you just do, you remember, you service the air conditioner the other day and you did a real good job. And he bought a pickup. This was 2 years ago. Now he has 8 employees and he is doing the job as well. This is an electrical engineer with a master's in electronic engineering, and he's cleaning air conditioning units, $250 to $350 a pop, and he's taking 20 minutes to half hour, right? So that's the point I want to make, right? So when we get past the income, so let's go to the actual steps now. So after we do that,
I will, yes, Anthony, you just have to wrap up in about 1 minute or so. We have a question coming in. So let's take 1 minute and, bring those steps together so we can address the question.
Yeah, sure thing, right? So you create an MS Excel file, right? Or you could use a physical notebook. And all you have to do is put all your income. Now, this one is steps that people fall down with. They forget all the types of income. They just put a fixed income. You have to put your fixed income and you have to put the other items of income, all items, whether you have stocks in the stock market, you have a unit trust account, do an accrual. If you put $100 in a unit trust and you're getting $1.40 at the end of the year, budget for that. All items of income, you do a subtotal, and then below that, you put every single item of expense, including food bill, utilities and communication for your phone bill and so on. You include loan payments, you include credit card payments, all the payments you could think of, every item of expense you must include. And what you may find is that when you do that first analysis, income less expenses, you may find that your expenses over your income. It either means that you're leaving out some item of income, or you need to adjust your lifestyle to reduce your expenses using all the techniques we talked about before. Whether you drink your water from Wasa, you buy a simple filtration device instead of buying water every month, right? And you do those. So the significant thing is you do this budget, and it's not a matter of just doing a budget. You have to review the budget every single month. You review your budget and you actually do a weekly review to see how you're doing. Right? The other thing I want to say is, one of the other tips you want to give is, when you're doing your budget for some changes as well. For example, one of the things I learned, me and my wife learned in this last year with this lockdown from last year, March to now, is that we don't need to eat as much starch as we used to. We have cut down on rice and potatoes and all those things. And you know what happened? We lose 5 and 10 pounds of weight, and we're keeping ourselves in better condition.
Yes.
So cutting down on those carbs is a good way to save money. So as I say, look at the income, look at the expenditure, try and include every item of expenditure and every item of expense, and adjust accordingly. Try to make sure that every month you have at least a 10% or 20% of your total income that you could leverage to either invest in a business, to invest in a stock exchange, to invest in your credit union, which I will advocate is the best option right now, because as I say, between 2.5 and 6% is what you're getting. Do your research, find out which credit unions pay the best, and join one.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
thank you very much. Thank you very much. I particularly like And we can bring the panelists back on. I particularly like your focus on the income side, because as we know, the expense is just one side of it. And this whole idea of the multiple streams of income, I like that particular focus. But we have a question that we'll address before we hear some closing comments from all our panelists. Hard to budget for income that you have no idea how much business earning you can expect. And this is, I guess this goes back to the question of not knowing what income, if I get it correctly, not knowing what income you can expect. From what I got from the last time a similar question came up, was the whole idea of you have to work with a minimum, with some minimum, right? And maybe I can ask the panelists to expand on
Yeah.
that very quickly.
Yeah.
Let's take a couple seconds to address this particular question.
Yeah, that one is one that I'm very passionate about, because there's a question that comes up to me all the time. And what happens is that goes back to the feeling of hopelessness that people have sometimes, because and sometimes it's just a lack of understanding where to look. Because at the end of the day, is not just having that that vision, but what you have to do, you have to look at your bank account. That's what I was talking about just now in terms of how you budget for income and so on. If you don't have an income, you only have what you have in the bank, right? And when you get income, it should go in a bank, right? So the point is, you have to make sure to budget for what you have. That's the real accounting I'm talking about. It's not a hypothetical thing like you just put things on paper and hope for it to happen. You budget based on real information. If you have a business and you ain't sure if you're going to make 5,000 or 1,000 in a month, as Madonna had said, budget for the minimum. Budget for the minimum, and if whatever you get extra is a lanyap.
Thank you very much on that. Anything you'd care to add to that, Michelle or Madonna, before we close up?
Yeah, I think that it's important to have your category for expenditure should be fixed and known to you. You understand? If you know that cable is $10, right? Then it's $10. And then your loan is $100. So far your expense is $110. And when you add that up, right, those fixed categories of your expenditure, those fixed categories of your expenditure will tell you how much it is that you need. So even if you only make $100 and you have 110 in expense, you know that you need to cut back because you have to save something, you have to invest something, right? So you need to cut back. But I think very early in the game, it is about knowing what is important to prioritize for your four walls, and also knowing what your expenses are, the categories and the costs. So if they're fixed, they're easy to manage, right? I know how much I pay on TSTT, how much I pay to Flow, how much I pay if it's Digicel, and you take plans. You understand? And then you could cut those plans if they don't serve you at this particular stage in your life. You understand what I'm saying? So that at the end of the day, when you put your tally, your budget is always $50. No surprises, because you have a fixed plan for every single thing, and your loan amount is this. So when you add all of that, you expect this is going to be my expenditure. Now, when you have that income coming in, which is the real income, that Anthony said, what is in the bank? And you look at that, and you look at that fixed expense, and you bring it together. If it's top heavy or whatever, then you go back now, and then you start to cut
and make adjustments.
You understand?
Yes.
But you start,
Yeah, I know there's so much that we can add. Is there anything you want to add to this, Madonna, before we wrap up? So I would just also like to encourage Chris that we do have our Make More Money webinar. So for some persons, they have to address the income situation. So look out on Fridays, and you will see some of our previous recordings of how to make that additional money where the income is particularly hard to project. So as we wrap up, I'd just like us to keep in focus where we started. We started with the whole idea that there are a lot of persons out there who they have a sense of hopelessness, they don't have a sense of a vision, and they really constrained by what's happening, and that's affecting their attitude and the sense of drive to really make budgeting work for them. I just want you to take 10 seconds, and just give them a word of encouragement. What would be your word of encouragement to those persons listening in right now that they can take away with, to know that there is hope and they can really make budgeting work for them?
If I could kick in,
Sure.
Money is attracted to management. So the minute you commit to managing your money, I think two things will happen. One, it will come to you, and two, God is going to bless you with more, right? And of course, knowledge is power. So you have to educate yourself on the different ways to find streams of income so that you can have something to manage. And once you have that, of course, you have that plan, and that plan is your budget. You execute based on that.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I don't know who will chime in next. Madonna, yes.
I would say set realistic goals for your money, and that will help you make smart spending choices. You can't run away from budgeting. I think it's quintessential. And if you want those who were talking about, having little, manage it accurately. There are things that you could do without, and it would help you come to that place where you realize your expenditure is decreasing. And once you are consistent, consistency is the name of the game. It would help you to be at that plateau where you finally being able now to be having more income than expenses.
Thank you very much, Madonna. Anthony, you have the last 10 seconds.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So one of the most important things here is attitude. I really believe that the money flows where we make the effort and where we plan and execute things in order. But beside all that, I advocate that people have hope. We must have that hope and trust in God that we will get through this, because what has happened in the past 6 or 7 years that the economy has gone down. So the overall financial pie has reduced, but things wouldn't stay like that. Economies are cyclical. So we're going to go back up again. So what we have to do is to prepare ourselves to ride out this rough patch and to make a plan for when the money starts to come back in, what do we do? But we have to get by at this point.
Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you very much to our panelists. So much has come out of it today. Thank you very much for Simone, who's helping us with the comments, and for LSC Productions for production today. And of course, thank you for you, the participants, who've been making the effort to put in the tips. We have actually over 101 tips, folks. And we have a special offer for you, a special ebook offer. So if you look in the comment section and you continue to check us on VisionWorks on our Facebook page, you will see the special offer for those of you that were able to view today, where you can access this ebook with over 101 practical tips for bulletproofing your budget. So we're happy to have you as part of our session today, and trust that it was good for you. And we encourage you to connect with us. Even if maybe there are things that you can apply, the things that you cannot apply, recommend it to a friend. There's somebody else that you believe can benefit. So please check us out online on our webpage and social media. Please like and share. All our handles and contacts are in the comment section. So keep looking out for more info and for upcoming sessions. And remember, you were born to make a difference. You were born to have impact. So thank you. Good night. And God bless.